Hey everybody, my name's Em. I am a suicide care advocate. I am a photographer, self-taught photographer, and I started a project after losing my brother to suicide. And the project is called Faces of Fortitude. And so 7 years ago, this started, and I wanted to make my first YouTube video today, official video, because I think it might be timely, some of the things that I've learned over the last 7 years about grief, because we're all processing different intense levels of grief and fear and scary things, feeling scary things right now. And I've learned a lot about that in the last 7 years, and I'm feeling it too. And I wanted to share some of the things that I've learned and hopefully inspire you, not cure anything, not fix anything, not be the answer necessarily, not even be what you want to hear right now. But I'm hoping that it plants a seed to inspire you to be creative about how you express your grief. I think there's a lot of fear mongering, there's a lot of chaos, there are a lot of people trying to mess with our minds on the internet right now. And I would like to offer something that is a little bit more, it will slow us down a little bit and remind ourselves to not leave ourselves, not dissociate, not go numb, not hide, but come back to where our power is, which is what we can control in ourselves. So I just put my first little tiny book out. I just put a book out on the day after Christmas, 3 days after my 50th birthday, and as a gift to myself. And it's just it's 80 pages. It's called The Little Bloom Book. And it's about how all of the plates that I was spinning came crashing down in the beginning of quarantine. And how in a moment of pure darkness, it was actually the quietest beings around me that helped remind me of the miracle that is me and us as human beings. And through very simple ways reminded me of how to better take care of myself and showed me the inadequacies of treatment I was giving myself versus other living beings. And maybe coming back to that pure part of ourselves and being able to treat ourselves like our own best friends can be where we actually start to find our power. I wanted to read a little bit, if that's okay, just the intro, because I actually feel like the intro of this book is very timely right now. Yeah, it's really awkward reading out loud to people, but I'm gonna do it. Introduction is called The Seed. Let me begin by saying I am neither a therapist nor a professional gardener. The COVID-19 shutdown changed my life forever, like it did for so many others. After being cogs in the wheel of capitalism for years, always moving, many of us felt things begin to crumble around us when the world stopped. All of the plates we were spinning fell, and we were forced to just sit with ourselves among all the broken pieces of what was once the definition of who we were. The daily moving parts that kept us so busy were no longer distracting us from the important things we were avoiding. I know for me, once I slowed down, it became painstakingly clear that there were some very important parts of my life that needed tending to. Because of COVID-19, people have lost jobs, homes, loved ones, and as of today, over 7 million people have lost their lives. The United States is in the middle of a very long overdue racial reckoning. We saw the very tardy and still incredibly slow awakening of white society to the mistreatment of Black and brown people in the United States and beyond. We have witnessed the rebirth of the Black Lives Matter and Land Back Indigenous movements as well as the fight across the United States and beyond for reparations and justice for all the lives affected and lost at the hands of white supremacy. Our instant news and media has shown us in real time the atrocities our ancestors, as well as our current leaders, are responsible for. At the moment I write this, the government representing victims of a horrible genocide that happened over 75 years ago are themselves now committing genocide. It's been happening for years, but the difference now is it's happening in real time for everyone to see on the internet. Sudan, Pakistan, Congo, Ukraine, and Palestine all experiencing major war, genocide, mass starvation, and suffering. And for the first time, it's being recorded and fed to the rest of the world immediately. We are seeing a huge uprising of people using their voices in protest in the streets, in the workplace, in their communities, and with their local politicians, and even with their own families. This is an immense amount of emotional information to take in and try to process all at one time, y'all. As I write this, the number of days there have been in the year are less than the number of mass shootings there have already been in the United States to date. We have seen hundreds of new anti-abortion, anti-gay, and anti-transgender legislation brought into the forefront by bigoted and hateful powers that be in the efforts to erase entire populations of marginalized people. Extreme levels of death, trauma, and sadness are everywhere we look. Politically, socially, economically, everything is affecting us. A select few are leading the greed that is capitalism, while the rest of us are struggling to make ends meet with food, housing, gasoline, healthcare, if you're lucky enough to have it. Being so overpriced, many people are one check away from being unhoused. Mental health is finally at the forefront because it has become impossible for us to ignore. People are not okay. The world is not okay. Our bodies are not meant to process this much loss and grief. The process of people finally slowing down and sitting in their wounds long enough to name things and begin the process of healing is now, and it's happening collectively. People are starting therapy for the first time, ending long partnerships, and learning boundaries are connected to their self-worth. So many people I know are learning to stay with themselves mentally when things get hard for the first time in their lives. That is causing a lot of intense situations and conversations everywhere. It's almost as though people are hitting their mental limits and verbally throwing up on each other, myself included. I am who I am today because of every trial and error. Half of my life I spent watching my fears from afar, like ghosts in my closet, never showing themselves with the lights on. The suicide of my brother Jimmy created a panic within me, a fight or flight that quickly became a way of life. I was constantly attempting to prepare for every possible outcome, which was my valiant effort to never feel that kind of pain or trauma again. Hypervigilantly, I moved from one person to the next, my nervous system always at a 10. I never really came down from the fight panic that trauma created in me. When I began to experience those fears and then see myself come out on the other side, I really began the journey to not just healing, but into coming back to myself. My worst mistakes have yielded more growth than I ever admitted I needed. And my worst fears have proven to be more survivable than I ever imagined they could be. In the early days of COVID, I found myself moving through some very painful transitions and events. I sat, and I survived, in the depths of loneliness and depression that 10 years ago I never thought I could have gotten through. I started the long journey of naming my wounds and beginning to move through them with myself, processing truths about my upbringing, my childhood, sexual assaults, my grief from both my own suicide attempt at 17, as well as the completed suicide of my brother. I spent many nights healing little M, building blanket forts, eating candy for dinner, and watching comfort movies. In those moments of darkness, it was my plants that helped me realize I needed to do a better job caring for myself. The Little Bloom book is about how by listening to the blooms of my plants, I was able to begin the journey of listening to and healing my own blooms. This world is such a difficult place to be right now. And if you are a part of any marginalized group, it can feel excruciating. Because the people holding the reins of power, currently in government and beyond, are actively trying to erase you. For so many people, it feels like their lives don't matter. So why continue to live them? It is my hope that by sharing my lived experience, it can help you sprout new ideas and perspectives on how listening to your blooms and having difficult conversations could be the key to our mental healing, especially in the midst of so much pain. That is the intro. Thanks for listening to me read. I just want to close this out by saying I want to do more videos. I would love to do a live if people are interested in it later down the road. But more videos about just unpacking things as things unpack for us here and abroad. You know, the world is suffering in different ways in each area. It's not just the United States, but it isn't great. And I'm here as a safe space and support for people that are interested in it or need it. There's no paywalls, there's no fees. That's not what we need right now. So I urge you all to jump into your feelings of what's coming up right now, because I promise you, that's actually where we find our power, is in those pain points. This fear that we're feeling now. I know it's scary, but give yourself space with it, because that's where I've found in this project, when people have space to tell their stories and talk about it, that's where they find that spark, that thing, that purpose. Anyways, I'm sending love to everyone, and thanks for watching my first little YouTube video. Next time we'll have music. I don't know how that works on this platform, if I'd get in trouble for it, or I can tag. Anyways, either way, take deep breaths, get outside. Next time you walk by a tree, put your hand on it. Just feel it for a minute, the vibrations, ground yourself. We can get through this.